Hey there, welcome. It's Karen Lanoux from No Limits Businesswoman, and I'm really glad you're here, as always. And so today we're going to talk about why procrastination really isn't always so bad. So why on earth would I say that? Well, I'm going to get to that in a moment. But first of all, I just want to tell you who I am. My name is Karen Lanoux. My business is called No Limits Businesswoman, and I help women in business. So I'll be really clear about this. Women in business. So if you have a job or you have a business, you are a woman in business. That's who I help. That's who I have always helped. I've been in business for the last 11 years, and I help women in business who want to level up. And procrastination, overwhelm, self-sabotage, and the imposter syndrome are getting in the way of them achieving their personal or their professional goals. And so that's what I help them get past. And so again, just really clear, I help women in business. So again, if you have a job, whether you're in corporate or whether you're working for somebody at a management or higher level, again, those are traditionally the people that I work with. But what I know is, doesn't matter where you are, what level you're at, the things I talk about are going to be of service to you. So I'm really glad that you're here. Now, again, this is our No Limits Live. And what I would ask you to do, if you haven't already joined me there, is to go over to our No Limits Businesswoman private Facebook group. And the way to get there, which is the easiest, is just type in your address bar, sheis.me, and that'll take you right there. Ask to join, I'll approve you, and then you can come and join the over 400 women that are already there, and come in, ask some questions. I would love to hear from you. Okay, back to procrastination. So why wouldn't it really always be so bad? Well, first of all, I'm going to talk about what happens when we feel like we're procrastinating to us, and so kind of what happens in the day-to-day stuff. And so in the day-to-day stuff, what I tend to find is that a lot of women, they label themselves as procrastinators. And here's the thing, as soon as you label yourself anything, you start to tell a story about yourself. You have a point of view. It starts to become a belief about yourself. And what that does automatically is it starts to limit you. And of course, we never want to do that. That's why this is a No Limits Businesswoman Live, right? And it's because we want to get rid of those limitations, because they do stop us. And I've got a hair in my eye there. And so what happens is, as soon as we have a story, or we label ourselves, or we have a belief about ourselves, and we call ourselves procrastinators, or that we self-sabotage ourselves, while that's useful, what happens is that we start to actually come to expect it in our life. And so then what we tend to do is we tend to feel bad about ourselves. We tend to have our self-esteem goes down, and our performance starts to also suffer. And so again, that starts to kind of show up in that form of self-sabotage. And again, I've seen women go through this. And what I find, and this is where, why it isn't always so bad, is when you start to identify exactly what and where the procrastination comes from. So sometimes procrastination just comes from the fact that you actually don't have everything you need to complete your task, whatever that is. And for some people, that really is a real thing, but then they call themselves procrastinators. And like I said before, if we start to label ourselves as procrastinators, then we become that. And then we start to look for it in other areas of our life, or in areas of our work life, and we start to do more of it. Okay. It's kind of a downward spiral. So sometimes we don't have everything that we need. We don't have all the information we need. We don't have all the input that we need. So we maybe feel that we're procrastinating, but in fact we're just not ready actually to take those steps forward. And I liked what this person said, from an unlikely source, Costco Connections. This is from the summer version, and it is called, "Is Procrastination a Good Thing?" And so they had two experts that talked about this, and one person said yes, it's a good thing, the other person said definitely no. But I think, and they're actually both right, okay? But I like what he said. He says, although procrastination is sorry, I'll say this again, I'll actually read it. Although all procrastination is delay, not all delay is procrastination. So that really just fits in with what I just said a moment ago, which is sometimes it really is. We don't have all the information. We don't have all the necessary pieces in place. And so that's why we actually procrastinate. And in fact, it's just a delay. It's not necessarily procrastination, but we've labeled it as that. All right. So I want you to start looking at what you're doing and the forms of procrastination that you have in your life. Now, the second thing that happens for some people is that it's actually not the time to do the project. Has it ever happened to you? Where all of a sudden you realize like there's something been on hold, and you just haven't been doing it, and then you feel badly about it, and time goes by, and then all of a sudden this perfect right time shows up, and then you kind of go, oh, yeah, this is it. This is why I've been procrastinating, or this is why it was never the right time. So I'm going to give you a tool around how to get around that, or how to discover that for the future. Is to, this one is really, it's like it isn't the right time. And sometimes procrastination certainly is that. Now, for other people, procrastination really is about, this is what this woman says, and they're deadline driven, right? They're deadline driven procrastinators, which isn't really procrastinating. It's just that they like to go by deadlines. When I was in school, when I was going to college, this was one of the things that always happened for me. I would wait until the last minute because I would do my best work, right? In terms of tests and whatnot, I would sit down, I would go through everything I needed to know. I would write down things on a piece of paper, like the highlights. And then because I'm a visual learner, and because I have a, what is it? Anyways, I can't think of it. But anyways, where I can memorize a sheet of paper, and I know where different things were on the paper. That's how I would learn. And because the information was so fresh, it was right, it was right there in my memory. Now, is this the most ideal way to learn? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I was deadline driven in those kinds of things. In my job, when I used to work for people, I was often deadline driven because, again, that's the way I work best. There was lots of things to do, but I like to drive it, to the very end, and I would get everything done, and it would be done well. And so what happens for us is then we get reinforcement that it's an okay thing, right? And so Val just said, she goes, no, I am not a deadline procrastinator, right? And so here's the thing, that other people who are task driven probably don't procrastinate that much, because as soon as they get something that they need to do, then they start to actually get in and start doing the task right away, right? And I do that sometimes. I do that often. But if I know that there's a deadline, I actually work better. So, and that's the thing in terms of being an entrepreneur, can be hard, because if you are deadline driven, then it is going to be harder for you, because who's setting the deadline except you? And maybe maybe it really isn't a real deadline except one that you set up for yourself. So, so that could be a challenge. Now, what I find for most people is that there is some other kind of other thing behind procrastination, and often it is, and I've written it down here. I really like what I wrote, and I can't read my writing. Right. Val says, I'm more of a wait till the right time procrastinator. So is that really procrastinating, or is it actually just you're delaying it for the right time, right? Because again, if you are calling yourself a procrastinator when you really aren't, then you may be labeling yourself in a way that is actually detrimental to yourself, because nobody likes to be known as a procrastinator, right? So, so the other one is really kind of emotionally driven, where it seems like we keep delaying on something that needs to be done. Again, whether in a job or whether in a business. And so it's like this ideal situation's hanging out there. So we could get a new client, a new contract, we could get a promotion, And there's all these things that we need to, that, maybe there's some things or tasks that we need to do in ahead of time, yet we procrastinate on that. And so, listen, we will do anything to avoid pain. And so when we are avoiding pain, what happens is that we will not move, we will not take action. And so when we are trying to avoid pain, even though the outcome could be great, there's some incongruence there. And the incongruence is often, and it's often a feeling, it's an emotion or something where we think, yeah, I want that promotion. I would really like that new job. But then somewhere there's this gremlin in the background that's saying, yeah, but what if you don't do a good job? Then you lose a job that you're already really good at, and you don't get, and then you lose the job, or you lose the promotion, right? And then you look like a fool. There's embarrassment. There's all that stuff that goes around with that. So sometimes procrastination happens because we're afraid of the circumstances. We're afraid of what might happen. As an entrepreneur, what happens is, and I did this for a long time, where there would be things I wanted to achieve in my business, but I wasn't listening to the little voice. Again, the little gremlin in the background saying, yeah, but then you're going to have to work all the time. And so there's stories, right? It's not necessarily the truth, right? So there's things that we're trying to avoid, that pain we're trying to avoid. It may actually not exist, but we have a story about it, right? So then, because we have the story and it's really kind of in the background, it's just a little voice, right? Or sometimes it's loud, but we just got to know I'm going to push through it, but then we don't do it, right? If that's one of those things, again, that's probably the most common thing that I find for people, is that there is that incongruence between their goal and getting there, and the tasks or the things that they need to do, that they're self-sabotaging about, that they're procrastinating about, that they're getting overwhelmed about because they're not getting it done. They feel that there is some potential for failure over on this side, or or something that actually isn't what they want. Like if you want to change your business and you want to leverage your time in a better way, and so you're wanting to create a different program, but then what if the program isn't good? What if it's not good enough? Or what if it fails and I put all this time into it? Or what if I actually, it's going to take more of my time, and now I'm going to have less freedom because now I've committed to this thing. That is the thing that I find that happens for most people more often. So I'm going to talk about in a moment about a couple of the things that you can do to start to shift that for yourself. Because the other ones, well, no, yeah, there's a couple things there. I'll go back. Never mind. Delete that. But in the meantime, for those of you that haven't seen my latest webinar, which is the 5 steps our clients are using to overcome procrastination, overwhelm, self-sabotage, and the imposter syndrome, go and check that out. Go to nolimitsbusinesswoman.com/training. That'll take you right there. I think there are sessions going on every hour, and go and check that out. Okay. So again, it's nolimitsbusinesswoman.com/training. And the webinar is called 5 steps our clients are using to overcome procrastination, overwhelm, self-sabotage, and the imposter syndrome. I know you'll like it, right? So go and check that out. Now, here's the thing. We have 60,000 thoughts a day, it's estimated. We repeat 95% of those thoughts every day in, day out. So we're always kind of wondering, well, nothing changes. That's one of the reasons too, is because we keep thinking the same things over and over again. We keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. And what happens, and again, especially if we've identified ourselves as a procrastinator, we start to lock that into place. And how that gets locked into place is by something called Hebb's Law, which is, neurons that wire together, fire together. And so the more we practice something, the more we practice an idea, a thought, it becomes a belief. And the more those neurons start to fire together, wire together, and then fire together, which means we will keep repeating these same patterns over and over again. So again, don't worry about it. This is something we all do. This is something that has happened to virtually every last one of us, but we can change it. And so change typically doesn't happen by force. All right. Now, sometimes there's just things that's like, okay, I have to get this done. And so again, it comes back down to that deadline. So we have to get things done. But sometimes, again, that's not always the way. So how do you start to get out of that? Well, how do you start to get out of that is start to ask questions. And when I say ask questions, I'm not asking you to ask a question so you can figure out the answer, because if that was the case, you would have probably already figured that out. You probably would have already overcome the procrastination or whatever was getting in your way, right? So it's not about asking a question so you figure out the answer. It's actually about asking the question and just letting it kind of, go out there and percolate, right? Percolate in your brain. But to me, it's more like it's actually connecting in with infinite intelligence. And so I've just got to get somebody's just... There we go. And so you're connecting in with infinite intelligence while you're asking that question, or your higher self, whatever it is, right? And there is, again, around us, there's this consciousness, and Thomas Edison, all the great people, all the great thinkers in the world. And I'm going to go back in time, and I've got to find some women, to add into this. But, Tom, the go-tos always are, Tesla, Edison, Einstein, these kinds of people who had big ideas, right? Well, part of it is that they were tapping in to something outside of themselves, right? So it wasn't that they just all of a sudden, some neurons fired and they got this new idea that they just came up with. No, the information, the answers were already out there around them. They just tapped into that. So what I want you to do is to start asking questions, and asking questions, so putting it out there, and then go do something else and let it percolate, let that question percolate. And a good thing to do on an ongoing basis is ask the question often and go do whatever you're going to do. And then just see what kind of ideas start to pop up. That's what I find is that there's a difference between ideas, where we're trying to figure something out and we're thinking about it, and the ideas come because we're kind of grinding through our mind and, searching for the answer in our mind. There's a big difference between that and the answer kind of just dropping in, right? And so for a lot of these, inventors and whatnot, and for anybody who comes up with some great ideas, it's not that they necessarily have always been thinking through it. It's just that, like, boom, the idea just popped in. And it generally comes from asking a question whether or not they were conscious about it or not. So in this case, one of the things that I said that procrastination happens is because we don't have everything we need. So we could be asking the question, which is, well, what do I need? Is there something I need in order to get past this procrastination? Yes or no, right? And see what kind of comes up for you. Is it yes or no? And I talked about in the last live, I talked about doing muscle testing to do this, right? And so you could just try doing muscle testing. I'm not going to go over that in this call, in this session, but yeah, you could muscle test. So, but what feels lighter? What feels right? What feels brighter to you when you ask the question, right? You're just asking the question. So, what would that take? Is there something else that I need in order to complete this project? Another question you could ask, and this would be for, is this the right timing? Is this for now, or is it for later? Yes or no? Or is it now or later, right? And there'll be one of those, you're kind of asking those binary questions. Is it for now or for later? Get a sense of what shows up. And Val just says, I want to answer my questions. I know. We all do, right? Because here's the thing. We want to answer our questions because that's how we've gotten so far, right? Because we've been smart. We figured things out, right? But really, in this kind of case where that's not working, and especially with procrastination, it's just ask the questions. You just put the question out there, and a really good thing to do, and I was just looking for my phone, but I'm talking into it. So is there some apps that you can use? There's one if you are on Samsung or an Android, it's called any.do, and maybe it's also, and I have to go and check, but it might also be available on Apple phones as well. But it will allow you to program tasks in, but I just write my questions, and then I'll just have them running every day, or so I'll have them running every day, or I'll have them running every hour, or I'll stop it for a couple of hours. It is really a tremendously great tool to have to just ask questions. So all of a sudden you'll get a reminder to ask yourself a question. It'll come up, the notification will come up, you'll ask the question, you'll get back and do whatever you're doing, right? So that's a really great way to stay out of your way and not try and figure out your question, okay? So yeah, so asking that question. And then the other thing is there something, the other question, and this comes back down to the idea of the procrastination that, you know, you're avoiding something, is just to ask the question, am I avoiding something? Is there some pain that I am avoiding by procrastinating, by not getting this done? Is there some pain? And what is it? And so that's a really great question also to ask. Val just asked again, what app is that? She also said it's very challenging to me. Yes, and it's a new habit though. That's all it is, right? You just have to get into the habit, and that's why the app is really, really good. So it's any.do. So it's ANY period DO. Anydo. Like honeydew, but not honeydew. Forget that. that was not a good analogy. But anyways, so ANY.do, and I think it's free. So it's a great free app for sure. If it is free, I don't think I pay anything. If I did, it was just like a one-time thing. So check that out. But again, here was another one that I used to use when I had an iPhone. It was called Chronology, and yeah, it was called Chronology. I always forget it because I haven't had an iPhone for years now, but I use that all the time too. It's not as good as any.do, but yeah, I would check it out. So here's the thing. The procrastination isn't always a bad thing. And in fact, it's just telling you that you think things there's something that you're either just avoiding because there's some fear there, or it's not the right time, or you don't have everything that you need, or you're just a deadline. You're just driven by deadlines. And so if you're driven by deadlines, let's just say you're not a procrastinator. Okay. Can you do that for me? Just if you are a deadline driven, just take procrastination out of your vocabulary. If that's how you get things done and that works for you, awesome, right? Now, again, but if it is that you are, it's not the right time, or you don't have everything that you need, ask those questions. And again, ask the question if it isn't, if it's just something something you're avoiding because you're fearful of something, or there's some kind of pain you're avoiding, then you want to ask those questions and then just start to move your way around that. Again, I would always suggest clearing on around the energy, because often we've been living with this for years, and we have this story and belief that's been stuck with us for years. So try those things, and if you would like more help, and you would like my help, maybe we could work together, you want to check that out, just come, let's have a chat. Just go to nolimitsbusinesswoman.com/talk, TALK. And it's just a 45-minute call, 45 to 60 minutes. And it's no pressure, but it's just like we're figuring out whether it's something I can help you with. And if so, then I may invite you to my program. But that's all you need to do is just set up a time to chat with me. I like to do this because what we'll do is you'll get a lot of clarity on the phone call. You'll certainly walk away with a lot of clarity from the phone call. We'll get to what your real goals are and the strategies to get there. So I'm so glad you're here with me. Again, just quit beating yourself up about procrastination. It isn't the end all be all. You can get past this. And when you get past this, all of a sudden, it's just amazing the world that opens up for you. When you're not beating yourself up, or you actually are able to now, because you've cleared out the fear, you're now able to start taking steps forward. Natalie had asked, after the call, could you please post in the comments which apps are on the phone? Apps for the phone. I absolutely will. Yes, I absolutely will. I will post all the links that I talked about today. So again, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great week, and I will see you next week, next Monday. And see, I did it again. I should have my schedule in front of me. I don't. So next week I'm doing another cool topic. be here or be here. That would be great. But in the meantime, be the girl that decides to go for it. See you soon. Bye.